Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today we are going to be working on a new dragon piece. Now before we get started, I wanted to plug myself, I guess. I'm really bad at this, but I have been more active lately on Twitch than I have been on YouTube, so I figured I might let you guys know that I've been streaming on Twitch, usually Tuesdays and Fridays in the middle of the day for me. I don't know what time zone you are in, but normally it's the middle of the day for me. But yeah, I've been over there. I've been doing games. I've been doing drawings. Recently, we did a drawing stream where I ended up drawing Bubbles, our little mascot that I decided to make for the channel. I made a bunch of him. I'll throw him up on the screen so you can see what all I did. I think we got like 3 of them done that were really cute. But yeah, let's get started on today's dragon. Okay, so with this project, at first I really wasn't sure how I wanted to go about making my dragon. All I knew was I wanted it kind of plant, maybe swamp themed. So I was messing around with different things that I had in my just random collection of resin things and trinkets and gems and whatnot. And I had these pieces of resin and these fake pieces of plants. And I thought glittering these would be really cool and we could figure out how to use them in this project. Now, I was a little too lazy to want to mix up a bunch of resin to do multiple layers because it takes days to get the glitter correct before glazing over it with a final thing of resin. So I found a lazy workaround. I found that this one product called Diamond Glaze actually works really well. You just paint it on, it's the texture of runny glue. I sprinkle glitter over it, it hardens. I can do another coat in like 20 minutes and then I can keep adding glitter until everything is covered. And then the final layer I ended up doing was resin just to make sure it was really locked in there. Plus the plants were a little wiggly and if they wiggled I didn't want the glaze to crack in between the little plant sections, so I wanted to resin that. Anyways, I think they came out really cute. Still at this point, no idea what I'm doing with them. But for now, I think I have a rough idea of how I want to start my dragon. So let's get started on the clay head first. Okay, so I'm gonna get the base ready for my clay. Got my tin foil, gonna put a thin layer over it, and then I need to get a basic shape figured out. And so far my idea is to kind of have it looking kind of vulture-esque, something with a beak, something kind of like skinny in the face. I figured that would go really well with a swamp theme, just something that would be a little like slightly creepy, but not too creepy. Once I have my basic shape figured out, I'm then going to build up the clay on the side of the face where I want to add some eyes. I have some specific glass eyes that I want to use, but they don't really bake too well, so I'm going to be using some temporary ones to mark out where those are going to go. So I'm going to place those, make sure the placement is where I like it, and then I'm going to start building up the shape of the face kind of around it, but not covering the glass eyes because we do need to pop these off and replace them. Going back to the beak, I'm then going to roll out some clay and we're going to figure out where the bottom edge of the beak for the top section of the beak is going to go. So we need to figure out where it's ending, that way we can add our bottom beak section. I know that sounded very confusing, but it'll make more sense as we continue. But yeah, I'm going to lay out this strip of clay, figure out how I want to adjust the shape with the shape of the beak. We're going to blend that together, kind of make some adjustments, and we should be able to kind of add a bit more detail and stuff to the beak. Mainly figuring out where his nostrils are going to go. And I actually had the idea of giving him a piercing, so I made the nostrils connect in the middle so there's a nice gap. Don't believe I ever figured out how I wanted to do this. By the time I finished the piece, I just never figured out the piercing. So he's got a availability for a piercing, but Yeah. I really did go into this piece having no idea how I wanted to do anything. I just kind of winged it most of the time, which sometimes is kind of fun and just relaxing, just throwing a piece together without like being really nitpicky on the design. That way I can make changes here and there. Similar to this, his face just didn't need a nose piercing after I was done sculpting it, so I never thought about it after I did all of this. I actually kind of forgot that I even did this until going back through my footage. Anyways, I'm pretty happy with the shape of everything, so I think I want to start working on our final detailing. And I'm going to start on the beak since we're already working on it. I want it to look very like old and beaten up, kind of crackly and jagged at the edge. So I'm going to start with line work going down the side of the beak, and then as I get towards the edge of it, I'm going to start breaking that up even more and kind of leaving some nice chunks and indents in it. So I'm going to do that throughout the entirety of the beak. I'll add some texture around those nostrils to make them look also kind of crackly and stuff, and then we'll move on to adding more texture to the face. I don't think I want to add too much texture to the face because I kind of want it very smooth like a vulture's head that wouldn't have feathers or anything. So I think I'm just going to kind of rough it up a bit. Maybe add some scaling texture here and there, just a tiny bit. Now at this point, his head is pretty much sculpted, but we're not done yet because we do need to fix those eyes. So what we're going to do is we're going to bake him. We're going to put him in the oven for about 45 to 55 minutes at our 275 Fahrenheit temperature, and then once he's done and cooled, I'm going to pop these glass pieces off and replace them with the eyes that I want to use. I'm just going to attach them with a little bit of hot glue, just enough to where it doesn't like squirt out of the sides because I don't want that in the way. And then we're going to mix up some epoxy clay, that way we can add the eyelids around the eyes. I'm going to blend that clay into our current clay till it looks nice and smooth and you can't really tell the difference other than the color of the clay. And then this clay just needs to be set off to the side and cured. You don't have to bake it or anything. Now, the only other clay pieces that I'm going to be doing are actually going to be the claws at the end of our toes and the finger sections of our wings. So before we can get to that, I need to make our wire frame for each of those. So for like with the wings, I'm going to take our sewing patterns that we have. I haven't really gone through what these look like, but I kind of need to use the pattern to do the wings. So this is the wing shape, and we're going to use this to figure out where the wires are going to go, and we want wires for all of the fingers. So I'm going to measure everything to figure out where I need to cut my wire, and then we're going to put everything together. Now with these wireframe, because we're adding the clay to the tip, you want something for it to grab onto, so make sure you loop your wire at the end so it has a nice section to grab onto for the clay. Once all of my claws are cured, what we're going to do next is we're going to be wrapping our wire in yarn. That way we can make our toes and the fingers of our wings. Basically what I do for this is I normally will grab a yarn and I will glue it roughly under the nail, and then I'll start wrapping all the way down. I'll wrap up again and then I'll wrap back down. So usually I find out that 3 layers works really well for the thickness that I like for my toes and stuff. So this takes a lot of time, so I'm just gonna sit here for literally, I think I actually spent all day on all of these because I had so many claws and finger sections and whatnot to do. But I wrapped everything. And then after that, what we're gonna end up doing is start painting these and the face. Anyway, once I have my yarn wrapped onto all of our little digits, I'm gonna start painting it to match the fabric that we're gonna use, which is going to be kind of this really dark purple, like plum color with a little bit of a pearlescent to it, which is a really difficult color to color match with, but I've managed to find a good combination of colors to do so. Plus, I think I'm gonna have it fade to more of a blue as well, and that should help. So I'm going to do that, and then when we get to the claws, I'm just going to be painting them a nice gray color. I am going to, of course, lighten them up a little bit, that way they stand out from the rest of the wing section. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to move on to the face. So for the primering of the face, we're going to use pretty much the same colors that we were using on the fingers and toes, and I'm going to get everything just completely covered in it. Okay, so the face is really dark right now. It is all dry, and what we need to do is we need to start adding some lighter colors because it's very dark. I can't see anything. So I'm gonna get some grays, some lighter grays and some bluish grays, and we're gonna start messing around with adding color to the beak first. I really want to have the beak stand out from the rest of the face. And then after lightening up the beak, I just started adding colors. I added some more greens and some kind of lighter colors here and there. I just added random like markings going up the face. I added some dots here and there to make it look more like scales. And again, I started winging it again and just throwing on colors that I thought would look really cool and just kind of go with everything else. Once I was happy with everything, I let my paint dry, and then I'm just gonna take one of my like sharper tools and I'm gonna start scraping and removing the paint from the glass eyes. Okay, so I showed you the pattern for the wings, but I didn't show you the rest of the sewing pattern for the body. So I've got all these different sections, and I thought it would be really cool to have some little floppy fabric spikes going down the back of him. Anyways, I think the first thing that I want to work on actually is finishing up the wings because they're the closest to being done, and then we can work on the rest of the body. So the only thing we need right now is the fabric for the arm and the fabric for the webbing of the wings. The fabric for the webbing of the wings, I actually decided to do like a bit of a hand dye job with them. So they're kind of a nice like faded peach color. I thought that would work really well with the purples and stand out. Again, kind of going for swamp colors, but more like swamp with flowers. So basically, I'm just taking the fabric for the webbing and I'm connecting it to our wire frame, sewing it in place around all of those wrapped yarn sections. So I've got to literally stitch it to like each individual finger of the wing. Kind of time consuming, but I think it looks pretty good. But yeah, I'm gonna get this attached, and then the arm section for the wing just has a top and bottom. We're gonna stitch these two together going down the very top section, and then we're gonna sew this in place and stuff it. For the painting, I'm not going to do too much. I'm going to add a little bit more to the body section of the wing, and then I wanted to make it where you can see the finger pieces on the other side, so I'm just going to kind of follow along that and paint some lines. I want to add some polka dots here and there, just kind of throwing in a little bit extra detail because the wings were looking a bit plain. You know, since we're already working on the wings, how about we start on the feet as well? Because I do have some fabric we need to sew around those toes. So just like the arm section of the wing, we have a top and bottom, and we're just gonna stitch this going around all four of the toes. Once we get to that point, we're gonna sew going up the sides and stuff it. It's pretty simple. I'm also going to add a little bit of paint to this as well to match it with the other fabric, or the other colors on the yarn. Now we should just have the fabric for the body. So I've got the body broken up into basically three pieces: the neck, the main body, and the tail. Each one, what we're going to do is pin the two sides together and sew down the backing. With the body and the tail, they do have those fabric spikes, so once we're done sewing, we'll have to cut all of those out, and then we can flip those individually out as well. After we have the neck, body, and tail put together, we're then going to attach them to make one big body piece. So I'm just going to sew these together, and then we should be good to start on our wire frame. So for the wireframe, I did just like what we did with the wings. I used the pattern to figure out how to cut the wire, and I just assembled it based off of the sewing pattern. Now the first thing that we're going to add to our wireframe is going to be our clay head. So I have a nice hole kind of like drilled into the tinfoil backing of our head. We're going to fill that with hot glue and then just run the wire for the neck into that hole and let it dry. After that, we're going to take the fabric for the neck and we're going to glue it around the base of the head. We also have a fabric piece that's going to be the underside of the neck, and kind of that fabric goes down the chest section. So we're going to glue that in place as well. Now at this point I realized I probably should have attached the wires of the wings to the wireframe first, so that should have actually been done first. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our wireframe for our wings to the wireframe for the body. Then we can run those through the holes of the fabric for the wings and sew everything in place. Once the wings are attached to the wireframe and to the fabric of the body, I'm then going to start stuffing and closing up the body. So the fabric for the underside of the neck, I'm just going to sew down that on both sides until we get to the very end of it, and then we'll just continue until we get to the very tip of the tail. So we're gonna make sure to just stuff as we go. Now the last thing that we need to add to his body are the legs. So we have our wires sticking out for his back legs, and we need to sew the fabric for his hips around those. That way the wire goes inside. After we have that fabric in place, we can then take the wire frame of our feet and we can connect those to the wire frame of the body. So I'm just going to wrap those in place, and then we can start sewing the fabric, connecting the feet fabric to the leg fabric. Lastly, we're going to need to stuff the legs and close them up. So I'm just going to get that done. Our body is basically assembled at this point, and now we need to figure out what we're going to do to decorate him. One thing I thought would be really cool is adding a sequin fabric to it, and I have this one that kind of color shifts, and I think it'll actually look really good with the purplish dark color that we have on him. So I'm going to figure out how I want to add it to the body, and I'm going to cut sections of it and sew it on top of our current fabric, just in like patches. I decided I wanted it around the head a little bit, so I will have to do some gluing there. But the rest of it can be sewn in place. And I'm just going to keep adding sections until I think he has enough sequin. Now for those glittery pieces that we made at the beginning, I think for the little round kind of pink colored ones, I want to have them going down the sides of the neck. So I'm just going to be gluing these in place. I'm going to make them nice and even, and then to kind of hide the seams, I have this one yarn that I'm going to stitch in place and kind of also just add it going down the body in sections to give more texture to him. Also, it should help hide the seam between the sequin and the other fabric. For the like leafy things, I kind of struggled where I wanted to put these. In the end, I decided to just attach them to the tip of the tail. I only ended up using 3 of them, and I used that same yarn to kind of hide the seam there as well. I think it looks pretty good. I just wanted to use them, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with them, but I think it looks okay. Okay guys, and here is the wyvern that I decided to make. He is swamp themed, kind of. I just had fun with him. I really, again, went into this creature without any plans and just threw him together because I thought it'd be really fun to just do that because I haven't done it in a while. Usually I over plan everything, and yeah, this one I didn't really have much of an idea of how it was going to turn out, and this is what I got. But yeah, I'm going to have him on my shop, so if anyone wants to buy him, give him a new home. I've got a bunch of creatures still on there, and he will be up there too until somebody buys him and rehomes him for me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, to all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!